Story 1. It is true that most times in life, we are hurt by the people we love the most. And for someone who went through thick and thin together, I didn't think that my ex-wife could cheat on me like that and still be careless about our baby. My name is Aaron, 14. And I had been married to my ex-wife, Charlotte, 35, for more than 15 years. I'd love to say that our meeting was divine because Charlotte came at the phase of my life when I lost hope in everything and nearly drowned in depression. It was quite sad that my parents were involved in a ghastly motor accident and neither of them made it. Their death took a mental toll on me and it affected my relationship with my ex-girlfriend and almost everything around when my ex-girlfriend could not handle me anymore. She broke up with me and moved out of the state with my cousin. So at that time, I wasn't just mourning my parents' death. I was crying about the betrayal and I was devastated that my ex-girlfriend left me at the time I needed her the most despite all the love I had shown her. It was at that phase of my life that Charlotte and I got closer. She was just an old friend of mine, and we didn't know each other so well. I just knew that when Charlotte found out about my parents' demise, she became the only one that would regularly call to check up on me. And because of her constant calls, I was assured that someone cared about me and it gave me the strength to keep hanging in there. Slowly Charlotte and I became closer. Most times, she'd come all the way from her where she lived to visit me. And I didn't even know that she had been crushing on me until she told me a few months after we started dating. Back then, we didn't really have the luxury of chatting on social media as much as we do now. We relied more on mails and phone calls, and that's how Charlotte and I used to communicate with each other. My parents' burial. We didn't really start dating each other immediately. We were more like best friends who looked after each other and told each other things, although more of the caring came from Charlotte. I was lucky that my parents owned a house I could live in after they passed away. If they didn't, maybe my life would have been far worse than it was. After my parents passed away, life became so tough for me, and the only person who helped me in sailing through that season was Charlotte. She was always there for me even when she was uncomfortable. And despite how things ended between us, I don't think I'll forget her kindness towards me. During the time Charlotte and I got closer, she had just finished college and she had a good paying job which enabled her to take care of most of my bills. Also, I wasn't emotionally stable to work at that time and I believed that morning my parents would help me get better, but after the burial, the emptiness inside me grew worse. Some months after coming back and forth to my house, Charlotte suggested that she moved into my house so she could look after me until I got better, and I loved the idea. She didn't have a boyfriend too. She had just broken up her ex-boyfriend. So that made the two of us free to spend time with each other without minding what we did. After some months, I recovered fully and I was back on my feet. Even though Charlotte and I were not dating, we allowed ourselves to do things people in a relationship did. And by the time I was ready to date again, Charlotte was the only person on my list. I saw how much she loved me and cared for me when I was grieving, and I could not think of any other girl. Even her presence helped me in forgetting about my girlfriend who abandoned me. Charlotte became the only family I had because number one really cared about me or my well-being. Immediately after the burial, my family members disappeared and barely took my calls. Also, because of the fight I had with my cousin who stole my ex-girlfriend, it caused a rift between his family and me. So I was left on my own. Prior to the time Charlotte showed up, it was very lonely because I was the only child of my late parents and I didn't have any step-sibling or family member I could turn to, but I didn't allow the sudden rejection to weigh me down. Instead, being the only child of my parents helped me in making the right decisions and taking my life more seriously. Eventually, I asked Charlotte to be my girlfriend and she agreed, and I must confess, she played a significant role in pushing me back to the social world. Before my parents' tragic death, I was already working, but due to how devastated I was, I had to resign in order to heal properly. Finally, when I was ready to work again, Charlotte called a couple of her friends and luckily for me, I was able to get a great job. With my money and Charlotte's money combined together, we were able to live a debt-free life, and we tried as much as possible to save. Deep down, I knew that Charlotte did everything she for me out of love, but I still felt like I owed her. I loved her too, but making her my girlfriend was not just enough. Whenever I could, I'd buy her beautiful jewelries, clothes, shoes, bags, or any of the ladies' stuff I knew she'd love. But despite doing all of that, I knew that no material thing could show the kind of love I had for her. I also went as far as booking surprise vacations once in a while just to make her happy. As time passed, I knew that I was ready to settle down with her. We were already living together and I was already used to her presence, but I wanted to make it official, so I planned a small engagement party, invited a couple of her friends. And when I took her to the location, she was surprised to see everyone there at that point. She did not need a soothsayer to tell her what was about to happen next. She could see it on the faces of the people at the restaurant. As she expected, I asked her to marry me and with so much excitement, she said yes. In less than 3 months, we got married. We did the small beachside wedding she always wanted. Got a priest and invited some friends. Then after the wedding, my boss was generous enough to pay for an all-expense paid 3-day trip to a very cool island, and we had a great time there together. I'm being detailed about all of these because I remember them like they happened yesterday. When we returned from the honeymoon, we renovated the house with the money we had put aside because it was far cheaper to renovate than to rent or buy a house. The thing was, we didn't just renovate the house for ourselves. The house had 6 bedrooms and we wanted to rent out 3 so we could make more money and as well prepare to start a family. Concerning starting a family, Charlotte was the kind of woman who loved babies. So she did not want us to wait a year or 2. We already had a lot of things taken care of, and she believed it was pointless of us to wait till we made so much money before having a baby. I loved her a lot. So when she said she wanted to have a baby right away, I had to agree with her. She stopped taking contraceptives and within a couple of months later, she took in. When Charlotte found out that she was pregnant, she was so excited about it that she could not talk about anything without mentioning the baby. She talked about the perfect colors for the nursery, the baby names, outfits, toys. She even went as far as planning the baby shower before we saw the baby bump. I was happy too that I'd become a father. But what made me happier was Charlotte's happiness. She was far more excited than she was for our wedding. It was great news for me because my father's name wouldn't end with me. And I was excited about the whole process of becoming and being a father. But unfortunately, our joy was short-lived. About 2 months after Charlotte got pregnant, she had a miscarriage. She woke up that morning, screaming in a small pool of blood on her side of the bed. And as far as I can remember, I had never seen her so terrified. When this happened and we found out that she had miscarried, Charlotte was so broken and was not herself for some months. She blamed herself for being a bad and careless mother and could not just get over the loss. Personally, I believed that she lost the baby because of how stressed out she was from work and taking care of the house. So I asked her to pause working during those 2 months and take good care of herself. And she did. I also made it my responsibility to take care of things at home so she could rest properly. I did the laundry, cleaning, cooking, shopping, and every other thing that had to be done just to make sure she didn't stress one bit. Slowly, she began to recover and return to work as soon as she was fine. Honestly, after my parents' demise, that was the second most toughest season of my life. Charlotte was literally the one I drew strength from, and seeing her that way hurt me a lot. Also, I kept assuring her that our baby would come, so she could get over it. Even though she had not seen our baby yet, I could imagine the kind of pain she was going through because I had been there too. Early the following year, Charlotte took in again, and our joy returned. After the scan confirmed, we were expecting a girl. Charlotte was so happy that she started to buy the baby stuff, and out of excitement, we told everyone that we were expecting a girl. Our friends were so happy for us, and some of Charlotte's friends, who were already mothers, even offered to decorate the nursery room for us. But as much as I hate to share this, Charlotte had her second miscarriage, and all of our plans paused the second time. She almost went crazy and began to believe that she was cursed. I can't explain how it just happened. She went to ease herself, and the next thing I heard was a loud scream from the bathroom. It was so sad to see her broken again, even way worse than the first time. We did multiple tests, but we could not really tell the causes of the miscarriage. All I knew was that it just happened. Slowly, Charlotte turned into a shadow of herself. She nearly became depressed, and she believed God loved everyone in the world except her. I must confess, it was really tough for me seeing the woman I loved in that state. I tried to take her to her parents' house vacations and places I believe could help her get back to herself, but nothing worked. It even got worse when she conceived again and lost the child the third time. She stopped hanging with her friends or going out like she used to. I was forced to get rid of the scan pictures and the baby stuff we had gotten just to help her heal faster. I also had to work extra hours just to make sure we weren't heavy in debt. What really helped us financially were the rooms we rented out. Though the money was not a lot, but it helped a great deal when Charlotte stopped working. It was a lot for me, mentally and emotionally, but I didn't want to be the one who would abandon her or act less concerned when she needed me the most. Personally, at that time, I was going through a lot mentally, but I had to keep encouraging Charlotte. I had to be there for her. And though we never really talked about trying to have a baby again, Charlotte got pregnant again. This time around, we weren't excited and we didn't tell anyone about it. Not to sound pessimistic, but 90s of me didn't see that being born. After so many miscarriages, I just couldn't believe that. When Charlotte got to 4 months, which had never happened in the previous pregnancies, we began to take it more seriously to even show how we weren't sure. Our daughter's nursery was built a week before she was born, and so was most of the shopping. When our daughter came, we called her Sarah because she was the represented hope at the time we least expected. When Sarah came, Charlotte became herself again. Sarah's birth came as a surprise to both of us because of everything we had been through in the past years, and we tried to have a baby for so long, but it just kept ending in miscarriages. Even after Sarah was born, I still had fear in me, fear that something bad could happen. I didn't exactly get over the previous loss we had, and that's why I installed cameras in the house to monitor her when she started crawling. I didn't tell Charlotte about the cameras because she thought I was being extra with always complaining about Sarah's safety, and I didn't want her to freak out too. Some months later, I returned from work one day to see our daughter chewing on a used condoms with semen in it, and I could not just believe it. I nearly ran crazy. So I took her straight to her grandmother's house, Charlotte's mom. And I came back to confront Charlotte, but she claimed it might have been from us. It wasn't because Charlotte and I didn't really get intimate during those months. But I pretended to believe her. When this happened, I had completely forgotten about the cameras I installed the previous months. And when it came to me, I went ahead to check, and I saw that Charlotte had fun with one of our tenants close to the baby's nursery, and she must have forgotten to pick the condom after they were done. This was another major heartbreak. I watched the scene over and over until I could not cry anymore. To pay her back, I took the recordings and child services got involved. When Charlotte saw the recording I had sent to her mother, she flipped and said it was my fault because I refused to touch her. I only wanted her to heal, but she cheated on me with a tenant who just moved in 2 months before the incident. I divorced her, and we did a test on Sarah for STARD, and my poor baby was free. After the divorce, I got custody over Sarah. And I kicked Charlotte and the tenant out of the house. Whenever I remember all of that, my heart aches, but what has happened has happened. Now Sarah is a big girl. She's 3 years old and she sees her mother whenever it's her turn to visit Charlotte. The truth is, no matter what she does to get back with me, it'll never work. Because she betrayed my trust and cheated on me, and that's something I can never take. Story 2. As I recall, it was during the Easter weekend that my girlfriend, whom I have been dating for a year, invited me to her parents' house for Easter dinner. Since my girlfriend lived quite a distance away, about 9 hours to be exact, I was the only one with a car, which meant that I had to do all the driving to get us there and back. Although I missed out on spending Easter weekend with my entire family, which was a tradition that I treasured, I decided to prioritize meeting my girlfriend's family for the very first time. Despite my initial reluctance to forego spending Easter with my own family, I thought it was important to make the effort to connect with girlfriend's family as much as I wanted to see my extended family. There were relatives from out of the country whom I had not seen in years. I thought it was worth taking the time to meet my girlfriend's family to get to know them better and show her that I care. Overall, the Easter weekend turned out well and we returned home safely without any issues. Although I missed spending time with my family, I felt that it was worth the sacrifice to build a stronger bond with my girlfriend and her family. However, the next day, my girlfriend went out to a birthday party for one of her friends whom I did not know, while I stayed at home and hung out with a few of my own friends. However, things took a turn for the worse when my girlfriend returned home in a state of inebriation, repeatedly vomiting for hours on end, as she often did whenever she drank heavily. I tried my best to take care of her, but it was challenging and emotionally draining to witness. But the next morning, things took an even more painful turn when a mutual friend of ours texted me, saying that we needed to talk. He came over and revealed to me that my girlfriend had cheated on me with a guy at the party. And I was filled with rage and disbelief. I couldn't believe that just one day after meeting her entire family she had betrayed my trust so carelessly. In a fit of anger, I decided to confront her about what had transpired. Despite my worst fears, she confessed to not just that one infidelity, but also to 2 other instances where she had slept with other men during our relationship. To make matters even worse, one of the guys she had cheated on me with was my neighbor, and to add insult to injury, it happened on my own birthday. I broke up with her on the spot. In the aftermath of the breakup, I struggled to come to terms with what had happened and how to move on. I didn't want to just let it go without some kind of closure or acknowledgement of the pain she had caused me. That's when I came up with the idea to message her mother on Facebook, thanking her for the Easter weekend and mentioning that it was great to meet her family. I then proceeded to explain to her that her daughter had cheated on me with multiple guys and that we were no longer together. I knew it was a drastic step, but I felt it was the only way to ensure that my ex-girlfriend was held accountable for her actions and that her family knew the truth about what had happened. As expected, her mother was shocked and upset by the news, and word quickly spread throughout the family about what had happened. It wasn't long before her friends also found out. And my ex-girlfriend was furious that I had exposed her infidelity and ruined her image in the eyes of her loved ones. As I look back on the aftermath of our breakup, I realized how lucky I was to have made the decision to end things with my ex-girlfriend when I did. It turns out that she contracted a non-permanent sexually transmitted disease from one of the guys she cheated on me with. If I had stayed with her any longer, I could have easily been exposed to it as well, which would have been devastating for me. While I understand that telling her mother about the cheating may have been considered a petty move, it was a momentary satisfaction for me to know that her actions had consequences beyond just our relationship. It was a way for me to hold her accountable for her infidelity and to let her family know what kind of person she really was. It wasn't about revenge, but more so about letting go of the hurt and disappointment she caused me and moving on with my life. Looking back, I don't regret my decision to break up with her or to inform her mother about what happened. It was a lesson learned and a reminder to always trust my instincts when it comes to relationships. Stop. Most of you are not subscribed. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the video. Everything helps for the algorithm.